Joining us now to give us an update on the situation with Ukraine and Russia from his perspective is Congressman Ro Khanna of California. Great to see you, sir.
Good to see you, sir.
Great to be back on.
Yeah. I also want to say we're going to get to this in a minute, but you've also just penned a new book. Let's go ahead and put the book jacket up on the screen there. Dignity in a Digital Age, Making Tech Work for All of Us. So excited to talk about that as well. But Congressman Khanna, if you could just lay out for us, what do you think the most important U.S. interests in the Russia invasion of Ukraine are right now, and how do you think that President Biden has done thus far?
Most important interest is to save human lives, stand up for human rights, and to avoid a world war. Obviously, Putin's aggression is totally unconscionable. He is hitting civilian targets in arguable war crimes, and we need to stand with the Ukrainian people. But we also don't want a no-fly zone, which is basically a shooting war with Russia. And we have to figure out how we put pressure on Putin ultimately, but continue the talks, which President Zelensky has called for, so that there can be some ceasefire and so that there aren't this catastrophic loss of human life. We have to continue to try for that. I think President Biden has actually been fairly restrained in not responding to Putin tit for tat, not rushing to these things like the no-fly zone. So far, I think he's handled that well.
So, Congressman, what role are you and in Congress going to have to play in this conflict? Some of the things that we've seen in previous American conflicts, which you've been in the forefront of, is an abdication of responsibility by the legislative branch. Can you at least pledge here, as long as many of your colleagues do, that you will be taking an active role in order to make sure that the legislative branch's voice is heard if there is an escalation?
Yes, absolutely. I support the administration in increasing weapons to the Ukrainian people so they have a fighting chance to stand up for their freedom in the face of this assault. I support also increase in humanitarian aid. But absolutely, everything ought to be properly authorized through Congress. And if there were ever a escalation on something like a no-fly zone, that would require congressional approval, and I don't support that.
Mm-hmm. What does it look like? How do we have any hope of bringing this conflict to an end? Because I can see the ladder of escalation very clearly and what that looks like. It's hard for me to see what the off-ramp potentially looks like. So just lay out for us how you're thinking about that.
Well, first, I think this war has been far more costly to Putin than he expected. I mean, the Ukrainians have put up a bigger resistance. They're fighting with great spirit. It's been much harder for him to take Kiev. The convoy out there has been stuck. He's losing soldiers. There have been more protests in Russia. So the hope is that the crushing sanctions, combined with the unity of NATO and the United States, will force Putin to the bargaining table. The question is when, and the question is how many lives will be lost before then. But ultimately, we need a ceasefire and we need a settlement, but Putin has to fear enough of a consequence for him to do that. Now, it would be more helpful if China and India also turned away from Russia. It doesn't help that they are not condemning Russia.
Yeah. Congressman, so we've seen the sort of stick from the Biden administration with sanctions that are punishing, not just to Putin and the oligarchs, but to the broader Russian population. What does a potential carrot look like, though? Because I don't think there's any sort of negotiated settlement without giving him something.
Well, he has to first be willing to stop the violence, to have a ceasefire. And then Zelensky, as I understand it, has been willing to negotiate and willing to come to some compromise. And I think we can follow Zelensky's lead. But the reality here is this is not about previous policy. It's not about NATO policy. I mean, Putin has a paper that is worth reading. He believes Ukraine's part of greater Russia, and he's attacking to make it part of Russia. And what we really need to do is clearly say it's unjustified, clearly say that he needs to stop and that there needs to be a ceasefire. And then I would follow Zelensky's lead in the negotiation.
Yeah, Congressman, you're also here to talk about this book. I know it's a bit of a hard pivot here, but let's put it up there on the screen again, just so people can understand what it is. Why did you decide to write this book at this time about dignity in the digital age and technology? I know you're the congressman from Silicon Valley itself, so you've been thinking a little bit about this.
I have. I actually worked on some of these issues with Krystal. She may not remember well before she was famous on Breaking Point. And the idea is that, we have $11 trillion of economic activity in my district, but so much of rural America, Black and brown communities, they aren't participating in modern wealth generation. There are going to be 25 million digital jobs. 9 of the 10 richest companies are tech companies. A lot of the billionaires are tech billionaires. We've got to get digital economic opportunity into rural America, into the heartland, like Intel going to Ohio. And many of these jobs are manufacturing, retail, construction jobs, and most of them don't require a college degree. And so it's about decentralizing economic opportunity in this country and not concentrating it in the coast.
So this isn't a kind of like hashtag learn to code kind of a message. So what could we do to help decentralize the economics, of the fastest growing sectors in the country? And do you think that, there's a lot of talk about the pandemic and the way it's reshaping work life and the number of people who are sort of moving out of the big cities. Do you think that helps to sort of further your agenda here?
Absolutely. First of all, it's absolutely not learn to code. The book starts with a story of Alex Hughes is making refrigerators and dishwashers and has some technology that he's grasped to make them smart. But the reality is actually in Silicon Valley, they talk about no code, low code, which means that these new technology jobs don't require much coding. It's just understanding basic technology to do manufacturing, retail, and these kind of occupations. And the COVID realignment gives a lot of opportunity because people realize, you know what? You don't have to move to Silicon Valley or Palo Alto. People can stay in Pennsylvania or West Virginia or Kentucky or Ohio and be close to their families, and they can still work and they can be productive. And I think that would be very good for the country.
Well, see, that's the interesting part, though. I mean, isn't it kind of bad for your district, though? To have work from home and to not have a lot of people who are living, I mean, what is it, 10% or something of the city ended up leaving during COVID? I don't know how much has come back. My own sister left San Francisco as a result of the pandemic and wanted to get out and pay cheaper rent. Somehow she ended up moving to New York. But like, as personally as to defend, like in terms of representing your district, isn't that not necessarily the best thing?
Actually, not Saagar. Here's why I can represent it because, I represent San Jose, Silicon Valley area, a little south of San Francisco. We have 10 jobs for every housing unit. The national average is 1.5 jobs for every housing unit. So our big challenge is that our housing prices are through the roof and homelessness in part. And most people say, we can't sustain 10 jobs for a housing unit. We need some of these jobs decentralized. So what I'm advocating is actually what a lot of people in my district want, a better equilibrium.
Well, Congressman, we recommend everybody check out the book. As Saagar said, I know you've been thinking about these things for a long time because we've had conversations about it for quite a number of years. We always appreciate you taking the time to engage with us here. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, sir.
Always love being on. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
All right, guys, we really appreciate you joining us. I mean, it's been a crazy week. We had the live stream, we had all this, we had Russia, the first full week of an actual war. I just want to say thank you to all the premium members and the subscribers. I mean, the State of the Union live stream ended up getting about 300,000 views currently at this time. Wow. That's just astounding. At one point, I think we had 32,000 concurrent viewers. None of that is able to be done without your guys' support. It costs a lot of money to keep these lights on, to pay our crew, studio, travel, all of that stuff in order to make sure that this all was able to be put on for a real live news event in the middle of a crisis. And that's what it means in order to run and support this operation. It cannot be done without all of your support. So thank you all so much for supporting us in this time of crisis. And I think that it's a real preview of what's to come. We're living through some crazy times. And now, because of your support, we have the nimble ability to respond in real time, to have an editing capacity. We've now have significant number of partnerships. Kyle Kalinski's channel will be posting clips on Breaking Points. We will have Marshall Kosloff, my realignment co-host, going to be doing news interviews for us, which are going to be previewing on the channel. We've got David Sirota. We've got Matt Stoller. We've got
James Lee.
We have James Lee. I mean, we have so many people now creating high quality content other than us, and we are able to support them with our editing infrastructure, the support of our channel, the support of all of our users, people like you. So thank you all so much. And if you can help, we do deeply appreciate it.
Yeah,
deeply appreciate it.
We're thinking about all the time how we can just make sure that you're getting a product that takes, a comprehensive look at the world that isn't dependent on these giant tech companies that we're just talking to Congressman Khanna about. And we are so grateful the way that you guys have shown up for us. Thank you for supporting us this week and every week. And enjoy your weekend, guys.
There you go.
We'll be back here next week. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.